Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lecture 2 of Beauty and the Beast. And I know that I told you that this lecture would be about Belle, and it would be about describing Belle and understanding who she is, but I realized that we don't even have the complete picture yet. Belle is the antidote to all these problems that exist in the world, but I haven't correctly explained to you what the problems yet. There's still one lecture that we are missing, so now I am going to do that. And it relies in one simple thing. It comes in one simple idea, and it comes in the idea of tools. The idea of tools. This idea of why are the clocks sentient? Like why do we have a lamp that talks, and what is the meaning behind it? Why does this all happen? And what is this world? What is this world that Beauty and the Beast consists of? And we're gonna have to remember this. This is your world. Belle is you. The Beast is you. However you wish to identify, no matter what, whichever one you decide to choose to be, no matter what, this is your world. This is your world. And for whatever reason, we have a system where where clocks talk and lamps talk, and what does that mean and how does that make sense? And hopefully, by the end of this lecture, I'll explain to you a little bit more about how you view the world. Because when you view the world, you see the world actually more like the Beast than you do Belle, most likely. And I'm going to explain to you exactly how you view the world. Most of what I'm going to say here is based off Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning lectures. He talks a lot about how we see the world as tools and things of this sort. But yeah, I'm going to put my own twist on it, and at the same time, I'm going to really apply it to Beauty and the Beast. So let's get into exactly where we were. Just a little recap of the last lecture. This Peter Pan character, the prince, is really spoiled and he has problems and he's a narcissist and he only sees things in terms of their value, right? He only sees things in terms of how much will this benefit me, and that's one of the most important things that we're going to realize. And so he sees this witch. He only cares about how much value she gives to him, and he's not really giving her any. She's not really giving him any monetary value. She's not giving him any sort of face value, if that makes sense. And what happens is she offers him a rose, and he turns it down, and he turns into a beast. Why does he turn into a beast? Because he realizes that he's inadequate. Why does he realize that he's inadequate? Because she turns into a princess, and he realizes that, wait a second, maybe beauty lies within. And we don't really have to get into that whole idea now, but the essential idea is maybe something exists beyond the surface level. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. And when you realize that there's something that you're missing, you turn into a beast character. You turn into something that looks ugly. You realize your own inadequacies. And that's really where he is. So now let's talk about the Beast, who he is, and why the curse mandates that all of his servants, right, all of his paid servants, hopefully, turn into objects, right? Why did they turn into objects? And it starts off with this simple idea: the hand and the clock. You have Cogworth, and Cogworth is the character that obviously turns into the clock. He's his servant, and this is in the beginning of the movie. Look at how they depict Cogworth. They depict him as a man without a face, right? The only thing that's showing right now is his hands. You look at his face and they blocked it out purposefully. And then when you show him in the screen, all it shows is his hand. And you ask the question, why? The thing is, and this is the strong idea, and it's the same thing with the lamp. You have the lamp. The only thing that the lamp does is illuminates his face. The lamp doesn't actually have any sort of value other than that. And this gets into the crucial idea, and this is the best way of explaining how you view the world. You view the world as a set of tools that exist for you. So, this is something really simple. So, for example, if I have a pen, right? Actually, okay, so I'll explain it in terms of a pen, and I'll give you a better story. So you have this pen. This pen is just something that I could use for my advantage, and that's something that we know that, right? That's something that we simply know. But then you think about humans, and you ask the question: do we use humans as tools for our own self-interest? And I was thinking about this the other day, and this was actually the reason why I decided to do the Beauty and the Beast lecture. It was because every single day I go down and I sit down on the couch to read, and usually there's not really that many people there, obviously, which is a conducive environment for reading. And I go and I sit there, and that one day I specifically forgot a clock, and there's no clocks in that room, and that's by design. They really don't. They want people to get lost in the moment, So I'm sitting there and I'm reading, and I'm not sure whether or not I'm missing class. So some person walks along, and I think they were some sort of janitor, something like that. And the problem is that I don't know. So the person walks by, and I was going to ask him what time it is. And in that moment, when I was about to ask him what time it is, I realized that when I was going to ask him the question, I wasn't going to ask him his name. I wasn't going to ask him I wasn't really going to look at his face. Like, I didn't really care about what he looked like. The only thing I saw that man as is I saw him as a clock. Because really think about it, right? He didn't have any purpose for me. I didn't care about his name. I didn't care about his basic humanity. All I cared about is whether or not he had the time. And the interaction would have gone very simply. Hey, do you know what time it is? Yes, it's 12 o'clock. Thank you. Or, hey, do you know what time it is? No, I don't know the time. That's okay, thank you. Right? I would never have asked him for his name. All I saw him for was a tool. And that really changed my perspective. I listen to all these lectures and I'm like, okay, maybe this is true. But when it actually showed itself in my life, I realized that maybe I do see the world as tools. And then I asked this difficult question. If I go up to my best friend and I say, hey, what do I view you as? Do I view you as a best friend, or do I view you as someone that could fulfill my need for friendship? That's a question that I really don't want to answer, because I talked to one of my best friends and I asked him that question, and he said it's almost undeniable that we see each other in that way, that I see you as a tool for my need for friendship, and you see me as your tool for friendship. And that's just how it is. But Beauty and the Beast offers a different perspective. Beauty and the Beast says that this perspective is the problem with society, and that we could actually overcome this, which is it's an interesting theory. It's a difficult proposition. It's tough, but I think one thing that we could recognize is that when you look at your best friend, you don't see them as a tool. When you look at your parents, siblings, lovers, right, all these things, you don't see them as a tool for your own gratification, right, for your fulfillment of needs. You see them as a person, right? You really do. And it's more than just approaching a stranger and saying hello to them, right? It's more than approaching a stranger and asking them for what time it is. There's something deep that exists beyond the realm of needs that we see other people as. So maybe there is something here, but it's a tough. They really hit on a really, really tough idea, and maybe that's why this movie, this archetype, this story of Beauty and the Beast is a tale as old as time. So, here is where I must simply explain to you the idea that I've been sort of brewing up, and this is definitely strongly based off Carl Jung and Jordan Peterson, but there's definitely a little spin on it that I've been sort of working on, and I definitely want to sort of flesh it out, So it's this idea of multiple personality theory. That's what I'm really calling it right now, and I've been trying to verify it with sensory experience, right? Like going out into the world and verifying that it's true. And God, it's so complicated, and some of the best ways that people have been able to do it is through these stories. So I'll take you through this idea of Cogworth and Lumiere and all these different characters and how they explain this idea of multiple personality theory. And this is another way of understanding. This is, I think, the best way of understanding how we act and how you act. So let's start it off with a simple idea. Let's see if I have a good picture to go with. All right. So we'll go with Belle. We'll go with Belle for this one. So let's imagine that it's Friday night. It's Friday night, and yeah. How about Saturday night? So it's Saturday night, and you're not sure, you're not sure what you want to do, It's at night, and you're saying, maybe I want to go and read a little bit. Maybe I should catch up on my studies. I've been a little bit behind on my schoolwork, so maybe I should be super studious tonight and do my schoolwork, That's one part of your, we'll say, internal debate. The other part of your internal debate is your friend just called you up, and he said, hey, there's a party tonight. You want to come, right? We're getting a bunch of friends together, a bunch of guys, or, a bunch of people hanging out. You want to come. And you're like, oh, give me a second. So now you put the phone down and you're asking yourself this question. And this is the fundamental question, right? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Do I want to study tonight? Do I want to be, we'll list the personalities, so the personality traits. So tonight, the question is, do you want to be studious, right? Do you want to be a studious, we'll say, trustworthy, honorary student that your parents would probably approve of, right? That's probably a good way of looking at it. Or do you want to go out and do you want to be the extroverted, fun, we'll say less studious, obviously, and doing something that your parents probably wouldn't approve of, right? You have that choice. You have that choice of, one person or the other person. And that's the fundamental idea. The fundamental idea is you're not asking yourself in that moment, what do I want to do? Because asking yourself, what do I want to do, is a little bit too shallow. It doesn't explain everything. You're asking yourself, who do I want to be? Right? And when you ask yourself that question, what you're saying, maybe I view the world as tools. And maybe I say, you know what? I haven't really been fulfilling my need for maybe extroversion, people, right? Doing fun things, like doing, rebellious things, whatever. Or I haven't really been fulfilling my need of being studious and getting my stuff done and all that stuff. So maybe you're saying, I'm deciding which person I want to be tonight, because those two people are completely separate people. And the question is, which one do you want to be, right? So this is a good framework to view the world, and this is the basis for multiple personality theory. Multiple personality theory says that you are not just one person that's put together, right? You are not just one set of ideas, one set of motivations, one set of characteristics, because we know that. We know that we're more than that. We know that we're incredibly, incredibly complex creatures. And the thing is, we have all these different personalities. We have all these different personalities that reside within us, and each of them need to have their little, we'll say, time in the spotlight. So imagine that throughout the day, maybe you have about, we'll say you have 1,000 personalities, because we have no idea how many personalities you have. But we'll say about 15 get to show themselves throughout the day. And the question is, how long do each of them show themselves? And you know this because imagine you spend your day in work, you go to school, and you're one person, right? You're one person when you're talking to your teacher, and you have to be all super polite and all that stuff. But then when you talk to your friends, you're a completely different person. You have a completely different language, right? You probably curse a little bit more. You probably talk a little bit in less formal terms. You probably have different ideas come to your head. You're probably not so focused on being studious. You're probably just a completely different person. And then let's say you talk to your parents, you're a completely different person. Then let's say you're doing homework, you're a completely different person. And each of your personalities gets to reveal itself throughout the day. Another example that actually, we'll see if we could explain them through these characters. So that's exactly what's going to happen here. So the main reason, so this gets into it, the reason why the beast or the prince's servants became tools is because that is how he saw them. Does that make sense? Right? Imagine that all the people in your world, right, in this world, he didn't see them as people. He saw them as tools. So, why is it that they turned into tools? It's because he didn't even care about anything beyond that. He had no way of looking at them besides tools. So what did the witch do, right? In her moment of, we'll say, revealing his inadequacies, right, which is turning him into a beast, right? She also revealed the way that he looked at the world. And she revealed the way he looked at the world by turning these people into what he actually saw. And to me, that's genius. To me, that's absolutely genius. She turned them into tools because the prince only saw them as tools. He never recognized their humanity. He never, and this is the perfect representation here, he never gave them a face. Cogworth, he never gave a face. He only saw them as tools. So, this is the perfect time, right? This is the perfect time to explain now what these personalities are, right? Because you imagine that this is something that we already understand, and this is something we intuitively understand as you watch this movie. Each of the characters, as you go through, they all have different personalities, every single one of them, right? And that's the meaning behind it, right? The meaning behind it is that each of these personalities represent a personality within ourselves. Remember, this is your world, right? So right now you're in the world of the beast, right? Right now you're in the world of, okay, this is how the beast sees the world. You're looking at the world through his eyes because you're seeing these characters as tools. Now, you have tool number one, we'll say personality number one, is the representation of a clock, right? And this is something that I touched on a little bit before, but, clearly he's the conservative character, right? He's the character of security, order, logic. Obviously, when you think of a clock, you think of civilization. You don't think of Native Americans didn't have clocks. Indigenous peoples, they don't have clocks. So when you think of clocks, you think of civilization, order, and security. And what I want you to do as we're going through this, actually try to think of the people in your lives that are like that. When I think of the clock, I think of my dad. My dad is very orderly. He's very on top of his stuff, and he's very, he worked very hard. He's very conscientious is a good way of putting it. So and he's very orderly, right? So you have someone like Cogworth. Now you have someone like Lumiere. Lumiere is obviously high in extroversion, right? He's about passion, adventure, openness, right? Like very, very fun guy. And you're to think, you ask the question, roughly speaking, in that Saturday scenario where you're asking, okay, should I go out or should I be studious tonight? You're asking the question, should I be Cogworth or should I be Lumiere? Because that's really the question, right? You're really asking, should I be safe, secure, safe, orderly, all these things, or should I be extroverted? And one of the best things that I really like in that Saturday scenario is that, all right, I'll give you the next scenario, and I think this is a really, really great way of looking at it. And it really explains the idea that you are not just one set of characteristics. Because here's the thing. So I got it right here. So I recently just got a flip phone, right? And I got this flip phone for this one simple idea. I spend too much time on social media, right? I spent way too much time on social media scrolling through my phone, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok was big. I spent way too much time. And I had this fundamental debate with myself. We'll say I turned into the beast for a little bit. I went into the realm of realizing how inadequate I was. And I'm sitting there And I asked myself the question. I go, Nick, are you a trustworthy person? Like, do you lie? Are you honest? And I said, I hope, right? Yes. And I asked myself the question, when I'm in school, am I a trustworthy person? I would say yes, right? I do this, and this, and I always turn on my assignments in time and blah, blah, blah. There's that part of me that's very trustworthy. When I'm with my friends, am I trustworthy? I hope, right? There are these parts of me where I'd say, definitely, am I trustworthy? And then I ask the question, so we'll say that's one personality. And then I asked myself this question, and this was the rough question. When you are on social media, are you honest with yourself? Are you trustworthy with yourself? And then I thought back and I said, my big problem when I'm on social media is I say, okay, 5 more minutes, and then I'll stop. And then I'll go and do something more worthwhile, right? Obviously this is after scrolling for a while. And I'd say 5 more minutes. And then right after the 5 minutes ended, I would just bypass the 5 minutes and go for another 5 minutes. And then I'd say, oh, only 5 more minutes. And then I'd get myself stuck on this little loop of saying 5 more minutes for a total of 60 minutes to 2 hours. And then I'd be stuck on my phone for 2 hours. And then I ask myself this difficult question. I say, Nick, are you a trustworthy person? And I said, wait a second. I am a trustworthy person a little bit, right? Sometimes I'm a trustworthy person, and sometimes I'm not a trustworthy person. Sometimes I'm honest, sometimes I'm not honest. And I can't say with complete certainty, if someone were to ask me, do you ever lie to yourself? I can never say, no, I never lie to myself. I can never say I am a completely honest person because I have this one personality that wants me to lie. I have this one personality that is, we'll say, rogue. But the thing about the rogue personalities, for about 2 hours, in this case, 1 hour, 2 hours, it takes possession over me and it embodies me. And I act out this personality. So therefore, if you ask me if I'm an honest person, I can't say that because this personality is me for an hour to 2 hours. So to say that's the clash, right? That's the personality clash that I'm experiencing. I have the honest personality and the non-honest personality, and they fight to see which one actually takes possession of me, right? Which is my ego, if you want to look at it from the Jungian perspective. And the question is, who wins? Personality 1 wins sometimes. Personality 2 wins sometimes. And they have completely different personalities. They have contradictory personalities. They are two completely different people. You would imagine that the person that I am in front of authorities is a completely different person than I am when I lie to myself on social media, and that's a problem, right? That's really a problem. And then you sort of come to the realization that you're not one complete whole, right? I realize that I'm not one complete whole. I'm a bunch of different personalities that come together to create one me, one complex me. And you'll see that in your own life. When you sit there and talk to authorities, you'll say, wait a second, holy crap, I did not even think I was that type of person. You imagine that. Cursing's a really good example because it really shows itself in your language. It's like you're not going to curse around if you see the president of the United States come up in front of you, but you are definitely going to curse if you're around your friends. And you're going to be a lot more honest with yourself. You're going to be a lot more honest with yourself if you're around your parents than if you're around your friends, or maybe the other way around, depending on your relationship with your friends. So this is really the idea. So you imagine that I have my Lumiere and I have my Cogworth, and they exist within me, and the question is, which one do you want to actually embody you? Because it's really true. This is the idea in Aladdin. You watch the movie Aladdin, and Aladdin goes down into the Cave of Wonders, right? It's like this lion. And what does he do when he goes down into the Cave of Wonders? He finds a genie, right? And this is the Robin Williams character that everybody loves. And the idea behind that is, if you go deep into the cave of your own wonders, if you go deep into yourself, then you're going to find genie, which means genius, right? They're the same word. You're going to find that there's the little genius that exists within you. There's a little bit of wisdom that exists within you. There's this genie personality that exists within you, and therefore you could use that. And fundamentally, that's a hero story right there. You go down deep into yourself and you figure out, wait a second, there's a personality, maybe we'll call it a hero personality, that goes into the depths and finds the strength that lies within me, right? The good personalities that lies within me, and pulls them out and embodies them in my ego, roughly speaking, in yourself, in your conscious waking self. And that's what the beast doesn't do, right? That's what the beast does not do. Right now, the beast is somebody who, obviously, you'll see throughout the movie, he treats his objects, he treats his servants like crap, and that's exactly what happens, right? That it makes sense. Of course he treats them like crap, because he only sees them as objects. So now let's go into the objects, right? These representations of a certain personality, and this is a good way of looking at the personalities, right? They're subhuman, right? Because you would imagine this social media personality that I had, right? Still have, but I'm struggling with, definitely. The social media personality that's not honest. It's not a full person, right? It's not somebody that has thoughts and feelings and deeper emotions. It's only one fundamental drive. It's only one fundamental personality, and it's not whole. It's not complete. So that's the reason why these little personalities are objects. They are literally just these half people or part people. So this is a good way of looking at it. So you could either look at this as tools, right? You could either look at these characters as tools, or you could look at them as the personalities that exist within you. What's the answer? They're both, right? They're both. You can look at them from either way. So you have Cogworth. He's a representation of order. He's a representation of probably your typical society, the banker who works 9 to 5. That's a good way of looking at it. Then you have Lumiere, super spiritual, super passionate, right? You could think of him as like you ever go into a room and somebody completely lights up the room, somebody who's completely, extroverted and makes all the funny jokes and everybody loves him. And that's Lumiere. Then you have the mother figure, right? Mrs. Potts, obviously. You could say she's the source of wisdom, because throughout the movie she's always offering this. You could even look at her face here, right? This is the face of somebody who's about to give incredible wisdom on the right, and that's a personality. That's the genie that lies within you, roughly speaking. She's like the feminine representation of the genie. Then you have the you have the singer, who's just really funny. She's just completely high in extroversion, and she's probably like it's really cool that she's a dresser. A good way of looking at her is like the person that you are before you get ready, like super excited to go out and do all these things. And then you have the representation here of sensual love, right? She's the broom, and she's with Lumiere, right? And she's like the representation of like romantic, passionate love, and that's why her and Lumiere go really well together. They're both this representation of extroversion and passion and all these things. And then you have, oh yes, I forgot, you have Chip, right? Chip is a really cool character. He's the representation of the starry-eyed child, right? And if I were to pick anything that Belle is the best representation of a starry-eyed child. Like, you look at this, right? Like, what does she look like right now? She's got big eyes. She's saying there must be more than this provincial life, right? She is literally the representation of somebody who has a fresh view at the world, right? She's starry-eyed, and she could be anything, but at the moment she's just a small girl in a provincial town. So in the beginning of the movie, Belle is essentially Chip, right? Belle is essentially the starry-eyed person who has sort of like a naive view on the world, and obviously that changes throughout Belle throughout the movie. And then you have the dog who's I mean, I don't know. You ever watch any Disney movie ever? There's going to be some animal, right? Just pick literally any movie, and there's always some dogs, rats, like Cinderella has rats, Sleeping Beauty has birds and squirrels, you know. Moana has a little pig, like there's Aladdin has his little monkey, Abu, and the reason why these animals exist amongst every single thing is they represent your unconscious motivations, your deeper level animalistic motivations. That's why they're an animal, right? So you can imagine the dog here is a representation of your animalistic desire. Is a good way of putting it. And we'll watch throughout the movie as they sort of interact, as they sort of, talk to each other. So, okay, so we got past that, and so I just explained to you what these characters are, right? What these personalities are. The question is, why are they important, right? And that's the fundamental question that we're going to ask here. Why is it that we have all these characters that represent all these certain things, and why are they, well, exactly what they are? So why are they, order, order, passion, extroversion, like why are all these characters themselves? And I was doing a lot of thinking about this, and I think I've gotten the answer, and it ties the movie so well together. Every single one of these characters represents something that the Beast doesn't have, or that he has forgotten, a personality within himself that he has gotten rid of, and that is, we'll say, underdeveloped. Okay? So, think of it this way, right? He's a beast, right? He doesn't have anything that represents Cogworth, right? He doesn't have any order, he doesn't have any scheduling. Scheduling is a good way of saying it, right? Like, he's not on top of his stuff. That's a common phrase of to represent him, right? Like, he just kind of acts off impulse, and because he acts on impulse, he doesn't really have the essential characteristic of scheduling and being on top of your stuff and order and all these things. And then also you think of Lumiere. Lumiere's high in extroversion, adventure, passion, right? He doesn't have any of that. You think of someone like someone like Mrs. Potts. She has wisdom, right? She's a representation of wisdom. He doesn't have any of that. You think of someone like Chip. Chip is the child hero. Chip is the person who is bright-eyed, starry-eyed, looks at the world with a sense of optimism. He clearly doesn't have any of that. You think of the dresser as someone who's just relatively excited, like always excited to go and do things. He's pessimistic. He doesn't really do that. And then you think of the Mop Lady. I forget her name, but she the broom, right? And the sweeper. The sweeper who is a representation of passionate love, right? Like sensual love. And obviously he doesn't have any of that, because that's what he's going to be trying to develop this whole time. So you ask the question, what do these characters mean, and what do they do? They're a representation of the personalities within the Beast that he's neglecting. So we'll give you a typical example of someone in an intimate relationship, because it's really, this is something that we're going to be playing with throughout the entire movie. You imagine somebody who won't open up, right? Somebody who's in a relationship and just won't open up to their partner. They're, we'll say they have trust issues, vulnerable, all these things. They don't want to get vulnerable. They have all these problems that exist within them. And you ask the question, it's like, why do they not want to open up? Why don't they want to share these parts of themselves? And the answer is not like, well, saying they have trust issues is such a shallow way of looking at it, right? Like, you're not going deeper into it. If you say something like, they've shown that aspect of their personality before, and they received very negative consequences for it. There was some reason when they decided to show this deeper part of their personality, maybe the personality of the sweeper lady, right? This passionate love, this completely open love. When the beast or the prince, right, decided to open up this part of himself, or when anyone decides to open up that part of themselves, they got shot down right away, and there was some problem that happened. So what did they do? They took that personality and threw it so far down into their unconscious. They threw it so far down into, well, a lot of people use the reference like their closet, kind of just threw it into their closet and shut the door. Another reference is bottling up, right? They just bottled up that personality and said, I don't want to see you anymore. You're not happening. And then what ends up happening is that personality becomes undeveloped, and it never sees the light of day. So the question is, what are these objects a representation of? They are a representation of the fact that he has taken these parts of himself, these literal representations of his own personality, and thrown them into a closet and said, I don't want to deal with you. And, well, the question is, what is he left with, right? What is he left with? If he's undeveloped in the, we'll say, positive aspects of his personality, what is he left with? He's left with a beast. He's left with somebody who hasn't fully integrated these characters into his own self, and therefore is, well, broken. Broken's a good way of saying it. You know, Carl Jung spent his entire life, we'll say, and his entire philosophy is based off exactly that. It's based off the idea, so the basis for multiple personality theory is based off the idea of multiple personality disorder, right? Multiple personality disorder says that, I think everybody knows it, right? You have a person who literally has different personalities and all of them are completely disconnected, and you could act as, we'll say, I don't know, that's the character of the Hulk, right? The Hulk and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? You could act as the Hulk, and then you could act as Bruce Banner, and then you could literally just not know that, like, the two personalities could be completely conflated, and you have no idea what to do about them. And people have suffered from that debilitating disease in their real life, right? Like, you're literally 5 different people, and none of them have any connection with each other. So that makes me believe that there's some thing in our brain that says, wait a second, maybe there's something in our brain that actually establishes the framework for these multiple personalities and sort of manages them, sort of gives them the ability for one to come out, and then the other one to kind of come back, and the other one to come out, and for them to all operate in sort of a relative harmony for you to actually be able to act in the world. And I believe that for the people with multiple personality disorder, that mechanism, whatever it is, that sort of switching mechanism that we struggle with is, that they struggle with is flawed in some way. And you'll see this in your own life. Like, you imagine that every time you're making a decision for what to do, right? Not only as to whether or not you're going to go out and do whatever, whenever you make almost any decision ever, you're asking the question of which personality should I bring out, It's a question of, you meet a stranger on the street, right? And they start asking you questions, right? Maybe the first personality you're going to put up is maybe like the complete wall of kind of like, get out of my face. And then what happens is the next decision that you're going to have to make is, do I give them my trust, right? Like, do I sort of talk to them? And you're asking the question, which personality should I give them? Should I give them the open, friendly version of myself? Or should I give them the, get out of my face type personality? And then as you go deeper into the conversation, you're going to keep giving them different personalities and going deeper into your own personalities. That's exactly what every single good salesman is trying to do. They're trying to get you into the personality that will make you want to buy things, right? That's what social media tries to do. It tries to get you in the personality that will make you scroll. It's trying to access that part of you and then have it take over your body, take over your mind, take over your actions, and then once it has you there, then you're kind of stuck, right? Then you're going to have to go through the struggle of changing the personalities. You imagine you're sitting there, and the amount of times that I've gone through this terrible. It's terrible. I'll be sitting there and I'll say, okay, I've been on my phone for 2 hours, right? I've been on my phone for 2 hours and I should be doing homework. Should I do homework, right? And in that moment, I'm asking the question of which personality should I embark on, or should I embody? Should I embody the personality of studious, working hard, all these things, or the personality of somebody who is really not in control of their actions and is sort of being manipulated by the social media companies? And that fundamental decision is a question of personality, and it's that little switching mechanism that we have. When you look at that view, I've sort of taken that view of the world for the past, we'll say maybe like month to 2 months, and now that I look at the world that way, you could see the personalities that people are sort of struggling to fix. And whenever you're trying to go into some sort of goal, right? Whenever you're trying to figure something out, you're really just trying to access a specific personality. Like the hero mentality is just the hero personality, and once you sort of manifest that, then you could be a hero, right? And well, that's almost everything that we try to do. So what Carl Jung does, and this is what people with multiple personality, what do you do for people who have multiple personality disorder? What do you do for the people who are like the beast, like disintegrated, right? Don't have the correct personalities? What's the answer? You integrate them, right? The answer is you take all these personalities and you sort of deal with them individually, and you try to put all the personalities together. So, well, we're going to watch as we go along, right? We're going to watch as we go along. That's exactly what the beast tries to do. The beast takes these personalities, these good personalities, right? These good parts of him that exist, but he just hasn't accepted into himself. They sort of exist as the forgotten members of the castle, the forgotten members of his own self, and that's a good way of looking at it. I said something like throwing something into a closet, right? And for the beast, it's literally like he's taking these things, right? He's taking these things that could have an impact on him, like a servant, like a lamp, and just literally just using them as the things that clean up his house, the things that just sort of take up space and don't really have any influence on him. And that's exactly what it means by bottling up. That's exactly what it means by throwing something into a closet. He's not using them, so therefore they just sort of sit there and collect dust. I think that was all. I feel like there was one other thing I had to say. Oh, yes. There we go. So the one thing I'd left to say is this is the character trait, this is the fundamental archetype for the beast. He's the character trait of the poorly developed ego. Somebody who hasn't, when you think of ego, think of like yourself, right? Literally like the person that you are. It's poorly developed. The integration of his personalities, you could say, the integrations of all of the sub-personalities that exist within him yield a bad result. So the person that speaks to you, the person that he embodies, is somebody who is poorly developed. And you see that with the prince. The prince is clearly someone who's poorly developed, and same for Peter Pan, same for this beast. He's somebody who doesn't really integrate his personalities. He doesn't have the correct personalities that are... Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. He doesn't have the correct personalities for him that are, we'll say, taking center stage in his set of personalities, in his ego. So So now we're going to ask the question, how do you integrate that, and what is the solution to all of this? And the solution for literally, well, every single problem that exists in this world is going to be Belle. It's going to be Belle, and we're gonna dig deeper into exactly what Belle does and how she figures that out in the next lecture. So that is the end.